Okay, in this one, we're going to look at some of the basics of painting in Mudbox. So the first thing I need to do is come over here and change to my paint window. Now, then I also change to my paint tools, and when I click on the paintbrush, I'll basically get my properties for the paintbrush over here. So the first thing we need to do is actually add a paint layer. So when I do that, Mudbox is going to ask me, first of all, what I want to name it, and I'm just going to leave that at the default for now. But it's also going to ask the image size. So the image size, the maximum size I can paint at in Mudbox is a 4096 or a 4K texture. So 4096 basically is the square or one side of that square. So it's a 4096 by 4096 pixel image. That's pretty high res. The default here for TIFF is actually a good one, the 8-bit RGBA. You can also try a ping, but you can go above that. We can save directly into the Photoshop format, Targa's OpenEXR, so there's a lot of different formats you can use. I typically just leave it at the 8-bit TIFF. It seems to work pretty well. Now I also have the channel that I want to paint into. Typically we're going to paint the color portion first, so the diffuse channel would be where we'd want to start. But as you can see, we can paint a lot of different things in Mudbox, such as specular gloss, incandescence, opacity, the vector displacement map, a bump map, normal map, and reflection mask. I would generally suggest you don't paint directly on the normal map unless you're kind of fine-tuning or adjusting a normal map. It's better off, in my opinion, to allow Mudbox to create the normal map for you to bring back into an application like Max or Maya. Alright, so we're going to OK that. And as soon as it allows me to, it's created a diffuse palette here with paint layer 1. So now let's change our color. If I click on that palette, it brings up a color picker. So as we move around in here, I can pick the color that I want. I've got some default colors up here at the top. I also have an eyedropper where I can pick a color already on an object. So once we've picked a color, once I start painting on my object, you'll see it actually goes pretty quickly and smoothly. I also have a size and strength here. So as I increase the size of the brush, I'll be able to cover more area quickly. I also have, with the same tools and the same keyboard shortcuts, the ability to change the strength. So now I'm painting with less strength. Now, even though you can't really see that it looks less, we're going to change our material preset to something like the white gesso so that we can see through the material a little bit better. So let's drop our strength way down and then change the color. So let's change to kind of a yellowish. So now as I paint over the top, you'll see that that strength is allowing basically that yellow to combine over the top of the green and not completely obliterate it. If I crank that strength up, you'll see that yellow dominates through that green a lot more quickly. So the strength is basically kind of an opacity setting for the paint. The lower the strength, the more slowly it's going to combine in there. I can keep working back over the top of it multiple times until I basically get to full strength, but the lower strengths allow me to paint slowly rather than trying to do everything really in like one brush stroke. Now, if I'm adding kind of a base layer of paint in here, it's not a bad idea to work at full intensity. I can kind of just block everything in really, really quickly, and then if I want to go back over the top, I can. So big brush, high opacity, or high strength, and I can block that color in. Then we can go back with other colors at lower strengths and start to just kind of combine and fine tune what that paint looks like. Beyond that, we even have the ability to have multiple paint layers. So let's add another paint layer. Let's make this one a little bit lower resolution so it'll be a little bit faster. Now as I paint on this paint layer, let's crank that strength up. Let's say I really don't want that to be that strong. I can decrease the strength of the whole layer to be able to see through 2 layers behind it. I also have blending modes here where I can start to look at different ways to combine these layers together. So this blending mode here is very similar to the way things work in Photoshop. So I've got a lot of different options for how I combine layers together. Normal's just going to take the straight color and then the strength, where other options here are going to do much different things. So again, there's really no way to understand exactly what every one of these is doing without just looking at it. So it's a good idea to, again, just experiment and start looking at all the different ways. Now, there's going to be times where one of them, and I tend to use multiply and overlay more than just about any other blending mode, but sometimes as you kind of mess around in there and look at different things, you're going to find one that works just right for what you're trying to do at the time. So again, always experiment. Just keep playing around with the tools and you'll end up finding ways that you like to work.